So we're talking about qualities of good spray foam installation here. And before we jump into that, I want to bring up a few points about spray foam. And that is that there are some things you need to make sure of if you make the choice to use spray foam in your projects. One of them is that you want to have the budget and you want to have access to be able to hire qualified and certified installing contractors. The process of application for spray foam is more complicated, requires more skill and training, and the implications of an installation that's not been careful can result in defects, including off-gassing. So we're not trying to fearmonger in this case, but it is very important to have, again, a certified, trained installer do this work. And sometimes your budget for your project can't allow for that. Another consideration is that there are curing parameters for spray foam. And that means that certain products should not be installed if your temperature is going to drop below a certain point during the curing period. Another consideration is that the curing time takes 1 to 3 days, and that during that curing process the job site is toxic. So you need to be able to vacate the job site to allow for full curing. So just wanted to introduce those really important points about spray foam insulation. But given that you can allow for all of that and you have access to good installing contractors who are skilled, what you're looking for as signs of a good quality installation of spray foam is uniform color and uniform consistency, so that you're not seeing cracks or pitting, which would be rough bumps. You're not seeing any delaminations. You want to see that the material has not pulled away from the framing members and surfaces. This is probably the most important point. You want to make sure that your material is at least 3 inches away from any heat-producing elements. Otherwise, you do pose a fire hazard. The consistency of depth for spray foam is considered to be good if it is less than 1.5 inches in variation. And again, you don't want to see gaps or voids. And this is why not. These pictures really, the picture on the upper left side shows that we've got open-celled spray foam in an installation where to look at it from the outside, you wouldn't really see that there are these gaps and voids behind the layers, which are readily visible from the interior side of that attic. But when you look at it through an IR camera, you certainly see that there are these gaps and voids, which means that not only are you compromising your thermal control layer, but you're also probably relying on that open-celled spray foam to be your air control layer, and it will not function as an air control layer if you have gaps and voids. Even if it looks like from the surface that you've got a thick installation, that is not to the point if you've got those gaps and voids behind it. So here's a summary of good spray foam installation. You have uniform depth and consistency and color. You don't have pitting and cracks. The material is adhered to your surfaces, and that the material is at least 3 inches away from heat-producing elements. This is a picture that I took at a house I was in. I was very disturbed to see this. This is a water heater vent flue pipe that is in direct contact with the spray foam. This is a fire hazard. and it's unacceptable. It's pretty upsetting to see that. So what are some of that, to sum up, why do we need to check for a good quality of installation? Well, because we're going to have compromised thermal control performance if we don't. That means a reduced R value for all, whatever we're talking about, spray foam, a blown-in insulation, or cellulose, including cellulose. So with the blown-in material, mineral fibers, some of our concerns are with drift and settling. Same with cellulose, and in addition, we've got a concern with making sure that our framing is dry before we enclose any spaces. With spray foam, some of the risks of not having a good installation are air infiltration, because you're probably relying on that for your air seal as well. Again, off-gassing if you haven't allowed for proper cure time or installation conditions, and at worst, fire safety hazard. And that's not to just pick on spray foam for fire safety hazards. It could also be the case for cellulose, but it really is a concern, because we often will see spray foam used on roof decking, where we've got sometimes vent penetrations going through the roof, and that could bring it into direct contact with heat producing elements, and that is not safe. So what are the most importance from all of this? Remember, we started off talking about this in terms of insulation being part of our boundary between outside and inside. This is all from a building science perspective. So we're hoping that maybe this will help you consider your buildings and your projects holistically. Think of them as systems where the functions need to be effective. We've focused on the thermal control layer here. And the takeaways, I think, are to know your control layers and know what purpose your insulation is serving. Is it just serving as a thermal control layer, or are you also relying on it for your air control layer? If so, you have to make sure that that air control layer is intact, that it's taped and sealed. You should know what a good installation looks like. You should check for it. Use resources online, guides, application guides, installation guides for references. Make sure you hire contractors who know what they're doing and who are aware of installation guidelines, who have gone through certifications or trainings. And that is especially important if you are using spray foam. And to wrap up, I just say thank you for joining us. Let's all support each other in building healthy, efficient buildings that last. Again, I'm Kimberly Llewellyn from Positive Energy. Thanks for joining.